Bam! Welcome back to the second video in our potentially long-running series. I have a list of 12 units I want to talk about for each of these categories, but we'll see how these are received before I go too ham on it. The basic point of this video is people liked when I was talking about how to change units that are perpetually terrible or perpetually overpowered and how to fix them without just saying increase cost, decrease cost, because that's pretty boring and simple. So I found some units in the game that are not popular or far too popular and how to bring them back into line. I also added a third category just for me. It is called Meh. It is a unit or character that is not actually that bad, but still not taken, and we discuss why that is. So today, it is funny, I normally have 3, but we have 4 units today, and that's because 2 of them have the exact same problems and pretty much the same solutions. So, starting us off, for our perpetually bad unit is Quak Head Taker and Gorok. They are exactly the same. Foot duelists, one is tanky and one is supposed to be damaging / an assassin, but both of them suffer from the same problem, agency. They don't have mount options, and I'm not saying they should. They don't have mount options, and they don't have a reason for you to fight them. Where like Gorok's like, man, I have the most melee defense in the whole world. I can survive anything. And the opponent's like, okay, and walks away from him slowly, and there's nothing he can do about that. Quak is similar. Quak has all the armor piercing damage in the world, and he can debuff your stats to high heaven, warp shard armor plus trophy heads. Then he throws down standard ground for himself and dwarf gouger, and he's insane. He has so much melee attack and melee defense, and then you calmly walk away from him because he only has 40 speed. So we have talked about Quak a lot on stream. We've talked about Gorok once in a while, but just to sum it up here, I do think that they have different solutions to the same problem, but it roughly comes down to give someone a reason to fight them. So Quak's version, I wouldn't give him a Mortis engine, a constant draining type effect, because there's a lot of those in the game, and I think that's overdone. I would incorporate what Warhammer 3 has been pretty obsessed with, and not for a bad way, but they came up with this new mechanic for the game, and now they just want to use the crap out of it, and it's like Slaughter and Carnage. Effect intensity increases with each kill made by the unit for Scarbrand, right? You know that one. And if he gets it fully charged, he has like 2k weapon strength. Oh my god, he's amazing. I would give Quak something like that, where it scales up with unit deaths around him. I would go with that. Like, do the War Shrine approach, because a Foot Lord actually getting in and getting kills is pretty difficult because he can kind of get stuck in his own units or not get that many hits on things or whatever. But for every enemy that dies around him, he should have an AoE buff that increases melee attack and damage for his surrounding units, including himself, but like also the Storm Vermin or Plague Monks around him. That would also incentivize people to take aggressive Skaven infantry, because as we talked about in the Dwarf video that should have come out before this, the Skaven roster also doesn't have a need for a melee buffing Lord because most of their damage comes from their ranged assets at the moment, or their monstrous units. But their infantry has been a long time suffering, and they're not bad, it's just you have better options. So if Quak gave melee damage and melee attack, it would incentivize taking Storm Vermin or Plague Monk front lines, which is more of Quak's speed anyway. Trophy heads is fine. Verminous Valor's fine. I would cut Stand Your Ground for the building one that we just talked about. So Stand Your Ground would get changed to like, you know, Dreadlord or something, and it's for each unit killed near Quak within a certain range, plus melee attack and armor piercing and non-armor piercing weapon strength up to a percentage. Fine. Warp Shard armor is good if you make that change, because currently it's like, okay, minus melee defense and minus armor for stuff around me, but why would I take Plague Monks or Storm Vermin? The things that need that minus armor. Because if you're taking Clan Rats, they're not going to deal damage anyway, so it doesn't matter what the armor is. And if you're taking Death Runners or Censor Bearers or Triads, then they have significant armor piercing, so who cares about the minus armor? But with the other buff, you could just make him the Storm Vermin and Plague Monk Lord, then the minus armor and melee defense is fine. So with that other change, that's fine. And then Dwarf Gouger is okay. It's fine. I don't think it needs the melee attack though, because Trophy Heads already significantly reduces enemy melee defense. So I would change Dwarf Gouger, just keep base weapon damage, armor piercing weapon damage, and then give it, instead of plus 24 melee attack, give it like armor sundering, I guess. It's a little redundant on the Skaven roster because of Weeping Blade, but Dwarf Gouger in the lore can get through any armor like butter. So you could have armor sundering on that as well, getting them down to minus 50%. Actually, it could be synergistic yeah, synergistic with Weeping Blade if you did Armor Sundering, so it's minus 30 flat, because then the 50% takes off a different amount. That could be okay. Could be all right. Also, I think Quak needs immune to psychology, because otherwise he just terror outs whenever a big monster comes near him. And I'm not saying he's supposed to be the most courageous Skaven in the world, but he's currently really easy to route, and that's a bit of a problem. He doesn't even have Frenzy, which is another weird thing. Oh yeah, that was part of our conversation, is that charging thing should also give Frenzy, kind of like the Minotaurs do on the Beastmen. Gorbles have a thing. All Minotaurs have a thing where it's like Blood Greed. Yeah. So part of his AoE should be he gives everyone around him immune to psychology as soon as it starts charging up at all. So that would make Quak and aggressive front lines a little better and give him a niche, because he's already pretty cheap. He's honestly not that expensive of a lord if you cut him down. So I don't think he even needs a cost reduction. He just needs a different identity, because this whole I'm a duelist thing just doesn't work. On the other side for Gorok, similar deal, but he's more defensive than offensive. But his problem is still like, oh, I get a ton of physical resistance, and I get melee attack and leadership when I get low, and I give melee defense to nearby allies on a cooldown with stand your ground, and I provide dazed and melee attack and armor piercing damage for myself, and then I have this, it's plus 60 armor for everyone around me. It's just kind of like, okay, so this dude's going absolutely nuts in the background with buffs and stuff for himself and his crew, but he has 34 walking speed, and you can just ignore him. And with only 5,000 HP, you can easily kill him with spells, like Spirit Leech or Final Transmutation. So Gorok, why he got lumped in with Quak is I have a similar solution. Just give him one of those AoE charging things with a pretty large range, and it's like for enemies nearby dying. But honestly, you could have his be a little unique because he's all about like holding the line and stuff. So you could have, as units, friendly units near Gorok die, his buff increases. So like the more lizardmen around him that are dying, the leadership gets cranked up. So like he makes these skinks or Saurus that are losing models and like getting weaker and weaker. He's like, no, you will hold, you are not retreating. So like give it a significant leadership buff for the more allies that die around him. I would also give him him and all allies a speed buff for that same charging thing. So give them leadership and speed so they can get into the fight and stay in the fight, but people can't get away from them. That could be pretty good. Instead of, I would replace to the death with that, because that's just +4 leadership for him himself, and plus melee attack when he gets below 50%, which again, most of the game they're just going to ignore you, so who cares. Rokavitsa's fine, giving himself vigor, and that's pretty good. Stand your ground's all right. That's okay. Dazed on the Mace of Ulamog's good, but I would change it to not give himself so many stats because you just can't leverage them, but maybe whatever. And then the Shield of the Aeons is the big one. So if we're going to go with just 2 changes, let's change the death to the thing I just ranted about. And then Shield of the Aeons, I would take away the armor, keep the charge defense because it's cute, but it's not that important. I would have it give significant ward save, like 40% ward save to everyone around him. I think that could be better because armor is just kind of whatever. I don't know. It's not that useful. Like armor's neat, but not for a ability that you use that only lasts 23 seconds. So you could use Shield of the Aeons for like, you see a big spell coming in and he throws up this shield and blocks a lot of that spell. Like 40% ward save is good, you know. It's 60% of your spell is still getting through, but it could like make him make burning head kill less of a lizardman front line, or like Final Transmutation deal less damage to him or like the monsters that are around him or something like that. So I do think like Shield of the Aeon should be a more direct counter spell than this weird like armor thing, but that could make him like a defensive nuisance and a bit more of a problem. Anyway, those are the bad lords. Moving on. For our OP lord, we're back to the Skaven with Ikclaw. Ikclaw is a little broken. He's not one of the most overpowered things in the game, but I figured since we were talking about Quak, we could stick with the Skaven theme. The main problem is going to be Flensing Ruin is just too strong of a spell, but let's focus on Ikit. So he is a Ruin caster. Flensing Ruin can allow him to punish blobs of single entities, but then Storm Demon is good versus single entities or heavy infantry. Then his Doomwheel is good against infantry and causes terror and keeps him mobile. And then Brass Orb is also good against like infantry and cavalry, and then he's a crazy good caster. He's just got too much going on, and he's not that expensive. Like if you take just Flensing Ruin, then you don't need Musk of Fear. You can have Storm Demon. He's 2,400 for a terror-causing caster armored chariot duelist lord. It's a lot. It is a lot. It gets decently expensive, so I don't want to hurt him as bad as like Thoric Ironbrow, because Thoric Ironbrow is like 550 gold cheaper than this base kit. But Ickit. I like his identity as the caster lord guy. I just think you could heavily reduce his mobility. I mean, the Doom Wheel isn't that good of a melee combatant, but it is pretty good. This is hard. Okay, no, I got it. I'm rallying on how to do this. So this is some bullshit. Ikclaw is not actually that good of a caster in the lore, so you should have him not be the best caster. Like, Grey Seers are all way better casters than Ikclaw, and for some reason he's the best. Unlimited power needs to be changed. You can keep Storm Demon, you can keep his Doom Wheel, so he is going to be your mobile, decent melee combatant who's very tanky, whereas the Grey Seers are mostly immobile on their bells, just kind of stuck in place and very easy to shoot. So yeah, Ikclaw's going to be your tanky caster, but he needs to be way less good at casting. So unlimited power is some bullshit. Power recharge and reserves per second is not at all thematic for what he should be doing. Unlimited power. I would give him spell mastery. That's a little different. And I know that might go counterintuitive to like, wait, you said he's not supposed to be the best caster, but like unlimited power could give him 25% spell mastery when he casts it. And it could also give him speed and armor piercing melee weapon strength or something like that. So it's just kind of this like juiced thing that charges him up. Or you could have it be, or, you know, you could have it steal from the Chaos Dwarves and just give him this thing, more power. So unlimited power, you could give him acceleration, mass, speed, and then maybe some melee stats. Maybe not all of those. I would just do acceleration and speed and then like plus 20 melee attack or something. So you could do that or the other one I mentioned. But unlimited power should not give him literally an infinite winds of magic because he's not even that good of a caster. So I don't know why he is one of the best casting items in the entire game. It's kind of weird. So yeah, I do that. Just make Ikclaw less good of a caster and more of a hybrid tanky guy like he's supposed to be. Because the fact that he can outdo the Grey Seers at casting is Donkey Kong. That's stupid. And finally, for our meh, it's Mother of Stank. Yeah, she might be in the bad category, maybe, but I did want to talk about her and I didn't feel like she was aggressively bad. Mother of Stank is just kind of meh. She has this weird missile resist crown thing, which she already has some missile resist. Then she can get very tanky to ranged fire, and then she has a 3-use Spirit Bear, which is like a nuke, but then you also have AoE healing and vigor, and then you give magic attacks to stuff that's directly next to you, but you already cause fear. So giving stuff next to you cause fear when you cause fear. Whatever you're giving it to is also next to you, so you're already causing the fear. So cause fear doesn't do anything. Strider, I mean, your things in the woods already have woodsman, so I guess Strider is limited helpful. I guess it's okay. Magic attacks, that's 200 gold though. This seems like a lot. Arcane Conduit's fine. Fate of the Interlopers is a weird spell thing. It's like you give yourself spell resistance. You need to cast a spell. As your opponent's casting a spell, you need to cast a spell to get 20% spell resistance for 11 seconds. So that's like a timing thing. Are you just watching the whole battlefield to see if your opponent's ever going to cast a spell, and then you cast a spell that's also going to be useful and give you the spell resist? That's just awkward. So really what you're doing this for is the enemy for leadership. And then you have this dual lore of spells where like the Overcast does something entirely different and it's a neat idea, but most of the spells suck ass because they need to not be overpowered because there's 2 of each of them. And it's like, okay, calm down. How to make Mother of Stankia a decent lord is just to calm the fuck down. This is all too much. Is she a melee support lord? Is she an artillery piece? Is she a healing support lord? Is she a tank support lord with the missile resistance? Is she Manfred von Karstein with 12 different spells you have to keep track of? Stop it. Because then she also has to be priced appropriately, which is why I don't think she's OP anymore. She used to be, but now she's like 3,200 gold. You can cut some of this stuff, but she's still like, if you have nothing on her, she's a 1,400 gold artillery chariot, which is just fucking weird. And that's another thing, is she's an artillery chariot with some decent melee stats, but mostly you're getting her for like the 600 armor piercing weapon strength. Stop it. Just stop. Missile resist, Crown of Claws. Honestly, you could cut that. Just cut that from her whole personality. Arcane Conduit's fine. It's pretty harmless. Fury of the Land is just weird. I would cut that too. Fate of Interlopers is weird, but we can't cut that because that's her spell lore. Goulia's is okay. Spirit Bear is okay, but we just need to tone all this shit down. So we're gonna have the mixed lore. I'm not proposing we change an entire lore of Magic to make Mother of Stankia work. So that's out of my control. But we're cutting a bunch of other stuff. So I'm gonna check mark stuff I wanted to keep. You can keep Goulia's. Fine. It's fine. Okay, so we cut a lot of stuff. Fate of the Interlopers. Obviously, you can't cut a lore passive for when you're casting a spell. But this is too situational. So I would do the enemy -4 leadership is fine. And then self-ally give weapon strength and missile strength. So just if your guys are dealing damage when you cast spells, they take more damage. That's fine. Whatever. Or give yourself magic attacks. Give yourself global magic attacks for 11 seconds. That's also fine. But this spell resistance thing is far too niche and situational. You can't pull it off. It's not going to work. So that dealt with that. Hazel, what you doing? Dog's barking. Okay, Fury of the Land, Spirit Bear, and Crown of Claws. Now, I did say they just need to calm down on her, so I'm not going to replace all 3 of these. I'm going to replace 2. Fury of the Land. Okay, we'll replace 2. Get rid of Fury of the Land entirely. She is an artillery character, and she has artillery stuff, and she's a spellcaster. The AoE melee buff for stuff near her is dumb, so skip it. Just Fury of the Land, cut it out of the game entirely. Spirit Bear and Crown of Claws. How to change those to be a little more thematic. Artillery's not that bad. If we're changing her to an artillery caster, that's okay, but then why does she have healing? So maybe keep Spirit Bear and now rework Goulia's and Crown of Claws. Okay, so Goulia's. We want her to be a caster lord. You could do plus leadership, vigor, and spell mastery instead of healing. And what that would do is she can either cast Goulia's on some nearby troops that need healing, or she can go over to them herself and sit in this little bog she created that's giving everyone leadership and healing, but then also she's empowered by the bog she made and gives her some spell mastery. That's fine, but you can cut the healing off and then this ability can be a bit cheaper. And then the Crown of Claws, if you really want the spell resistance, you can throw the spell resistance here instead of there. So take the missile resist off entirely and give her like 15% spell resistance for everyone immediately around her. Maybe decrease the effect range to like 35. But then that makes her pretty tanky against enemy spellcasters. But the missile resistance gets cut out so that she doesn't have weird overlapping missile resistance. And I think that would make Mother of Stankia just more viable and less like all over the damn place. Anyway, there's your reworks. Hope you enjoyed it. Bye.
Subscribe, yes.